someone might say, well, that would have prevented the Fed being able to get us out of the problem that we're in. I guess the obvious retort is it would have stopped them getting us into the problem that we were in, that they needed to get us out of.
Yes, and I guess as an example of that, we have, if you look at some of the companies that survive today, only survive because of cheap money, availability of cheap capital. They're not being run as true businesses, and rather than actually being run run in productive ways and using their money to invest in the future, they use it to buy back shares and to for dividends. So we don't have this creative destruction that should be allowed under a normal functioning, sort of capital society. We've gone past that. Mm-hmm. The problem we really have now is that we've gone so far past it. There's not much. The only solution seems to be keep doing more of what we've done and hope that we get out of this hole. But so far we've got a biggest debt we've ever had to GDP.
There is certainly a bit of a spiral, isn't there? There's one problem, we get out of that problem by doing kind of what we did once before, and that creates a bigger hole to get ourselves into, and then obviously to try and get out of, which is a bit of a challenge, certainly. I think we probably need to take a quick break. We are, if I'm not mistaken, almost halfway through our show, so we're going to do that. Please join us straight after that, and we'll continue our conversation with Adam Newman on crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, and the like.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
This is Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands.
And now, more Money Sense.
Welcome back to Money Sense on this cold Cayman morning. It's good to have Adam Newman with us as we warm up the grey cells and interrogate them and let them loose on this subject of cryptocurrencies. Adam, before the break, we were giving a little bit of the origin story of cryptocurrencies and crypto assets. Let's sort of delve into the practicalities, because there may be some people, I'm not suggesting there aren't, who have been persuaded by your argument that there is a value into this. I'm kidding. There will be people who are persuaded by this, but the practicalities of this are also really quite difficult. It's not something you find in your wallet. You can't get it from an ATM. I've personally never gone into a store and seen "we take cryptocurrency." So let's talk about the practicalities of how people spend it, what sort of places take it, why it's useful in that sense.
Look, I think the reality today is we're still far from it being a currency that could be used every day. Primarily it's being used for speculation or as a store of value. So we're not there yet. But there are some interesting things happening. A couple of sports teams, I think it's the Dallas Mavericks, accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. So it's not, we're starting to seep into mainstream. But the reality is most stuff we're not, most of the time we're not able to use it. I think the areas where you will start to see it first will be in the areas, or you are seeing it, is in the areas of gaming, spending money, e-gaming.
Gaming as in playing computer games, not computer gambling.
Games. No,
we wouldn't talk about gambling on this show, on this island.
No, playing computer games. And also micropayments for, and we talked about this actually off air, for content creation. So, content creators struggle, YouTube, etc., take a lot of the fees, but now actually you can effectively sell your your content to, for small amounts of money directly and actually benefit. So I think there's, we're starting to see some use cases, but we're nowhere near there yet. And the main reason is the user experience and the interface is just not ready for mainstream adoption. It's not that easy. And this is someone who's been looking at it for a long while. It's not that easy to just ping money around and go and put money on an exchange and stuff. It's slowly happening. The infrastructure's being built out. And I kind of say, there's patience. We're 11 years into a project, but that 11 years, we've seen the ecosystem grow to 240 billion. That's the whole of the crypto market space. Bitcoin itself is 150 billion. So it's no longer tiny, but
so just explain that. $150 billion of transactions a year?
No. So the market capitalization of Bitcoin today is about 150 billion US dollars in 10 years.
So that's the total stock of Bitcoins out there. Almost, if you counted every US dollar, there would be a number counting all these.
There's 16 roughly million out of the 21 million Bitcoins today in existence, all that will be created, and at a price per Bitcoin of say $8,000. I think we're just over. That gives you your 150 billion market cap. In terms of the value that's been sent across the Bitcoin network over the course of a year, we're talking billions and billions. I mean, it is relevant. There was and we haven't sort of spoken about this properly yet, but in terms of cost efficiencies, there was a 425 million financial transaction sent across the Bitcoin network, and it cost 25 cents, 0.25 of a dollar. Which, that just shows you some of the cost efficiency. So people are using it for large transactions, but predominantly we're still in the area of speculation.
Okay.
Speculating on the future price.
Well, so that's an interesting point, because there is a debate amongst regulators as to are crypto assets currencies or are they investment assets? What are they being used for predominantly today then? Are people genuinely, so of this flow of transactions that you alluded to the billions, is that because people are going out and finding shops or counterparties that want to physically trade goods in exchange for this currency, or is it because they are speculating, gambling if you like, that this thing will continue to go up or will go up for a change or whatever it might be?
I would say the latter. It's still predominantly speculation. So that's the reality at the moment.
Okay, so that then leads to the obvious question: there will be people who will have gambled on this particular or speculate on this asset. How do people how do people go about investing in this? If investing is the right word, speculating on this.
Okay, maybe. Let's take a little bit of step back and talk about why you would, how would you get from just pure speculation or, what the investment case is for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So, there's some long-term and short-term catalysts. In terms of thinking about crypto just as any other asset, any other, stock, share, we should think about, this is a new technology. You might want to invest in artificial intelligence. You might want to invest in robotics. You're investing in some future belief in some future. What the future may look like. So Bitcoin is, you can argue, nothing more than that. You're investing in a future where you believe that currency is going to be digitalized. Then you've also got, I'd say, there's the case that it's a hedge against poor policy decisions taken by central banks, maybe inflation, hyperinflation, goodness knows, just bad decision making. This is a hedge against that because it's a disinflationary asset, as we talked about. It's also an asset which is largely out of the current financial system. I would also argue today stocks and bonds are at their most extreme valuations almost ever. So actually it's prudent to have some diversification in your portfolio, whether that's real estate. So there should be some allocation to cryptocurrencies. It might only be 1% at this point, but there's definitely a case to be made for that. Then I'd also argue there's this whole generational shift, and this is interesting about your skepticism. There is definite divide around
between the old and the young. Where are you going with this, Adam?
Between the old and the young.
Right.
I'd say I sit around right on the cusp of between the older generation who are skeptical about the current financial system, who are buying gold, and the younger generation who are digital natives who can understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
And those in the middle who are ignorant of both. Is that where that's where I'm getting with this one.
So there's, I'd say the argument, like as a cohort, the Gen X and the millennials become more dominant, then naturally there's going to be a tendency towards more widely accepted towards Bitcoin. And then finally, actually, another thing I think which is really important, and I can't remember who said this, but in terms of investing, you should always follow the talent, follow where the smart people are going. And in the whole space ecosystem of cryptocurrencies, the smartest cryptographers, computer scientists, who aren't incentivized financially a lot of the time, they're incentivized through social means and stuff, are working on projects to figure out how we can better utilize this new technology to do charitable stuff, to do stuff in the area of medical records, etc., which we can talk about. And then I'd say finally, another investment reason is more short-term in nature, is a thing called the halving. And the halving is related to a supply phenomenon where every 4 years the supply of new Bitcoin is cut in half. And it's always basic economics. If you cut supply, price should have a positive reaction. That event's coming up in May. People may try to get in front of that and buy early, but it's likely to have potentially have a positive impact on the price. Yeah. How can you go about buying?
And that's so we're running close to an edge of time, and I do want to talk about how we go about buying it, but also as you explain that, just talk about some of the risks that have been faced by people who have gone and bought stuff, and exchanges. Not all exchanges are created equally, are they? So let's address that.
No, and I think this is as the ecosystem matures, we're going to see less of that over time. But of course, there's bad actors operating within the in the system. That said, there are some very well regarded, constructed. I don't want to say regulated exchanges that operate where they look after, they do safe custody of your assets, they have insurance over the assets, they operate much the same as a normal traditional bank, and they're Coinbase of the world, Gemini, Kraken. So I would say anyone looking to invest in this should go to one of the best and most well-known exchanges.
Because there have been some cases, there's a classic case where authorities, if I'm not mistaken, in Canada are trying to dig up somebody to see if he actually is dead or if he's actually absconded with people's money, having potentially stolen it, because it's alleged that he died and wrote down the password and never told anybody, and that's the password to the whole exchange or something bonkers like this.
Yeah, unfortunately, there aren't. It's not just one
or
two cases.
We're 1 minute away from having to close the show, but this is not. Then you've said a lot of very interesting stuff, which I'm now more confused by, because I've now got to challenge my own skepticism. But this is not. Notwithstanding that, this is not an asset for those to treat lightly. It's something that you need to do some research on. You also need to do some research as to how, if you were to buy it, how you'd buy it, because of the inherent risks associated with some of the actors out there. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I would just encourage anyone to take a small amount of money and just try and play with it. And what I mean is purchase some Bitcoin, send it to a friend, see how the whole thing works, because the best way of actually learning and understanding about something is by doing. And so actually, risk a tiny amount of money just to learn.
So you said the price of a Bitcoin is 8,000. Can you buy less than one Bitcoin? Because that's a lot of money to invest.
You can buy fractions of Bitcoin. Okay. So you could put probably $10. It's divisible by up to 8 decimal places. So you have Satoshis, which are called fractions of Bitcoins. So yes.
Right. You've introduced a whole new word, Satoshis. That's supposed to be the eponymous name of the founder, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we are regrettably out of time, and I have half a dozen more questions, and we've barely scratched the surface of this subject. It is an important one. It is one that we've had callers call in during the show, and we haven't had time to be able to take their questions. So if you did have a question, email us at moneysense@candw.ky or post it on Twitter, which is @MoneySenseRadio. We will promise to try and persuade Adam to address those questions, but because in seriousness, this is a subject which is often asked by people when they're talking about new investment ideas. It's often in the press. It's a very speculative asset, and it is one that people need to pay attention to, but also treat carefully, because it is risky. So with that, first of all, Adam, thank you very much for joining us. Secondly, please do come back and join us as a co-host on the show. And thirdly, for those who want to follow some of your writings and scriptures, how do they do so? Because you are avid on the whatever it is. What are you avid on? Twitter, right?
Twitter.
Right.
Twitter's my main medium. So you can follow me at from_10,000 feet, the numerical 10,000 feet. So you can find me there.
Okay, we'll try and link that on our Twitter thing, so that someone will try and link that on our Twitter thing. With that, I'm afraid that is the end of today's show. As a final note, let me remind you that this show will be available as a podcast on the CFA Society Cayman Islands webpage. Email us again, moneysense@candw.ky, or tweet us at moneysenseradio. And also, do keep your ears tuned and eyes posted to our social media, because we are going to try and ramp up our activity there so we can take some more of your questions and address some more of those burning issues that you may have. So with that, thank you once again. Goodbye, and please do tune into Money Sense again in 2 weeks' time.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.